The Field of 68 Media Network presents Red is the New Orange, a Syracuse basketball podcast.
Vince intercepts a pass, breakaway for the freshman guard, he flies and slams! Aerial assault from Judah Mintz.
Looking to go back door to Bell, they get it to a near corner three, knocks it down! Chris Bell, the sharpshooter.
Bringing you everything you need to know out of the 315.
Up top, Williams surges ahead, up with the right hand and in. A pretty up and under move from Benny Williams to beat his man.
Over to Taylor, he skips into the lane, puts up a floater, it drops in.
Let's get it started with your hosts, Ian Unsworth and Johnny Gadamowitz.
A couple of games without Donnie Freeman and a couple of wins for the Syracuse Orange. How about that? SU goes on the road to Conte Forum and defeats the Boston College Eagles 79-71 over the weekend. And as always, back to break it all down, Johnny Gadamowitz, Ian Unsworth with you here on Red is the New Orange, part of the Field of 68 podcast network. And by the time we release this, it is Tuesday morning, which means we've also got a game to get you set for tonight as Syracuse is ready to welcome in the Louisville Cardinals to the JMA Dome in a game that should be pretty telling. Ian, let's talk Boston College first. These are two wins, talking about the win over Georgia Tech and obviously the BC win, that I think are not needle-moving wins. I don't think we're going to go back at the end of the year and say, wow, this was a real turning point. But there's a reason I mentioned it off the jump. No Donnie Freeman, you find a way to get it done. On the road in particular, thanks to a hot start, and then things got a little murky in the middle, but then really putting the finishing touches on it down the home stretch.
Syracuse came out not wanting to shoot the three. First 10 points in the paint. Right, those got a lot of easy looks early on. But overall, the big takeaway is that the Orange had the best player on the floor last Saturday. Never was in question that J.J. Starling was the alpha dog in this game. Finishes with 26 points. He takes 22 shots. I mean, Johnny, you and I have been doing this for a long time now. You know I love he scored this many points but took that many shots. And a game like this, I don't care. I do not care. Because every once in a while, the Syracuse offense gets stuck in the mud. And early in the second half, it looked nasty. But J.J. Starling put the team on his back, scored 20 second half points, and also opened up a couple lanes for others. Had 3 assists, right? The threat of Starling attacking gives Eddie Lampkin a little space to go to work, and Lampkin got his at times in this game. J.J. Starling, though, goes on a personal 8-0 run when Syracuse is down 3. I think it was 41-38 early in the second half. And I think that was about when you texted me, dude, is this team going to lose to BC?
Yep.
Then down the stretch to really seal things, Starling goes on another 10-0 run. That was maybe not his best game in a Syracuse uniform. Yes, he scored a bajillion against Youngstown State. But that was a game that Syracuse really needed from J.J. Starling to assert himself after coming back from injury. And
the timing really couldn't have been much better for J.J., who obviously has not had the most perfect year by any stretch dealing with the injuries. But to see him back, to see him capable of impacting the game in the way that he has is really a bright spot, especially when you need him to, obviously with no Donnie Freeman. I really like this new look rotation as well, Ian. I'm okay with Jaquan Carlos and Chris Bell kind of taking a back seat because those are two guys that have underperformed more often than not. And this team doesn't really have time on its side anymore. You know, it needs results. It needs wins. And if Red Autry wants to play the guys that he thinks are going to give him the best chance to do that, I don't care what your previous stops were or how many years of college hoops service time you have under your belt. Guess what? You know, if Lucas Taylor makes more sense, if Kyle Cuff makes more sense, heck, if Peter Mastorovich makes more sense, and I think recently they have, then all the power to Red and this coaching staff for continuing to have the faith in those guys.
Because what do Cuff and Mastorovich especially, and Taylor too now, bring outside of scoring the basketball? They bring energy and they bring effort. And sometimes because Mastorovich is getting used to college basketball and getting acclimated to the speed of the ACC, his effort's misplaced. It's everywhere. It's flailing. He's fouling. The screens are wild, right? He's frustrated, but that's okay because he's going to go out there and play hard for 10, 15 minutes. And that's what Syracuse needs. Taylor and the technical fouls, like it's okay at this point. Who cares if he's going to yap and jab and get under the opposing team's skin? Like, it's kind of fun, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there's not a whole lot of times when you've turned on the TV this year and looked at the Syracuse team and said, I'm having fun. I enjoy watching this team play basketball. I'm not stressed. I'm not frustrated. I'm not saying things to my TV. But when Lucas Taylor gets going and goes on one of his little runs like he did in the first half, hit a couple of threes, opens the offense up, then dishes off to Jaquan Carlos, who hits a three of his own on the next possession. Like, that is fun basketball because Lucas Taylor is immediately energized and he's getting it going and he's talking and you can see him nodding his head. Like, that's what Syracuse needs at this point because some of these games are slogs, especially on the road.
And you can only hope that energy allows them to kind of feed off of one another, constantly be building and carry it over into the next game, which is what feels like happened from Georgia Tech to Boston College.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, too, that at least to me really sticks out that you take away from this as a real positive is Syracuse scores 79 points, despite the fact that they only knocked down 5 3-pointers. And we've spoken about it at length this year. This is not a particularly great three-point shooting team. Fine. Got to find ways to manufacture offense otherwise. And it feels like now they are starting to turn that corner a little bit where, okay, earlier in the season, shots weren't falling. They just had a tough time scoring. I don't know if it's real game reps, if it's getting more comfortable with one another, because I'll be honest, philosophically, I don't think a lot has changed. But we have been able to see a little bit more of an uptick, despite the fact that the 3-point barrage hasn't really showed up. Not that we expected to, but just manufacturing other ways to score.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of jacking going on. And before anyone gets the wrong idea, I mean taking unnecessary threes, okay? That's as far as I'm going to go on that, period, end of sentence. They are not shooting unnecessary shots. And there are some players in this rotation who you might accuse of taking some unnecessary three-pointers at times. But they've cooled it down. Because this offense, now that J.J. Starling is back, has its conduit. There's the guy who needs the ball at the end of the possession. We don't have to guess. We don't have to throw it around the horn and with 3 seconds left kind of figure it out.
Yep.
Well, you know where the ball is going with 4 minutes in the second half and in a 3-point game. J.J. Starling's going to go right downhill. He's going to go right at your guard. He's going to go right through your big man, and he's putting that thing on the glass. And the rest of the team knows to go rebound. Eddie Lampkin, a couple big offensive rebounds in this game. And honestly, a fantastic matchup down low, where I thought both guys played well, both Chad Venning of Boston College and Eddie Lampkin. I thought both guys played well. I thought both guys had their moments. I mean, Venning scored about like 6-7 points to start the second half for Boston College, but it was even. There wasn't a time when I thought Lampkin really got outplayed or I thought Venning really got outplayed. Like, it was theater almost. It was a heavyweight boxing match on the right block. Every possession. It was fun.
And
again,
let's be frank,
the word fun is back.
We don't see a ton of those like big man battles anymore.
It's not college basketball.
It's not. It's not. And I know that you and I both appreciate it when you do get a real premier matchup on the interior like that, where two guys sort of jockeying going at it all day. And that was the case. Just to tie a ball on the Starling point,
yep.
Out of all 26 of his points, 0 came from beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
Shows obviously his ability of getting to the rim. And in the mid-range, too, he took 22 shots. Only 4 of them were from downtown. Didn't make any of those 4, but it didn't matter. Obviously, still had a massive impact.
And we
now
should
the Louisville Cardinals.
Should give Jair Davis credit for his physicality, too.
Yep.
12 points, 8 rebounds, most of those coming on the defensive end. Again, 12 points on 12 shots. Not the most efficient, but some big buckets down the stretch off those dump-off passes from Starling and really brought a physical element to Syracuse's lineup that got Elijah Strong out of the game. So credit to Davis as well.
And depending on the Donnie Freeman situation, when he gets back on the court, when he's back to full health, we could expect to see more of Davis in steady doses going
Mhm.
forward. I set off the jumpy, and neither of these wins needle moving wins.
Yep.
This next one has a chance to be. The
Mhm.
Cardinals are 5-1 in the ACC. They have a couple of really good wins as of late, including wins over Clemson, North Carolina. Sort of a hodgepodge Cardinals roster. You
That's a
look at
perfect word.
you look at their leading scorers, a lot of transfers, and kind of just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And to their credit, a lot of it has stuck so far this year.
Well, it's a mix because Pat Kelsey, former coach of College of Charleston, is in his first year. And when you come from the College of Charleston, you don't necessarily have the recruiting power that someone like a John Calipari going from Kentucky to Arkansas does. Even though Louisville, I mean, if you're tapped into college basketball, you know that the Louisville Cardinal basketball fan base is one of the largest in America. And Louisville, Kentucky is one of the biggest basketball games every year in the state of Kentucky because people there go nuts for it. There's a whole lot of money behind this program, but instead of paying 16, 17-year-olds now, they're paying old dudes. And so that's how Pat Kelsey chose to get a winner right away. And he's got it. The only problem is that Louisville has had some injury issues and been killed in that department. Kason Pryor is the first name to look at. Johnny, he actually went to my rival high school in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He was a pioneer. I was a Skyline Eagle, and I spent many an hour cheering against Kason Pryor. Skyline never lost to him, so
There you go.
we'll take pride in that. But Pryor has turned himself into a really good player. This was his fourth school, really funky game where he's 6'10", but can step out on the perimeter. They lost him, season-ending injury in the non-conference, so they've been trying to replace him. Abubakar Traore is another guy that hasn't had that impact because he was out for over a month and is now getting back into the swing of things. So they're really trying to deal with these injuries, but they have good guards. That's what'll make the difference. And for Syracuse, Lucas Taylor is going to be put in a real bind here as their best perimeter defender.
Cardinals have won 6 in a row. We told you about some of their big ACC wins. Their only ACC loss is to Duke. They also have a really impressive win in the non-conference portion of their schedule as well. A couple of them. They took down then number 14 Indiana in the battle for Atlantis. Also beat West Virginia in overtime in that same Thanksgiving week tournament.
Yeah, lost to Oklahoma, who is one of the best teams in the country. I mean, there aren't many specs on this Louisville resume that are bad. And even though they've got injuries, right, it's not a necessarily complete roster. They still got dudes that can fill it up. Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin is not a prototypical point guard. And usually he shares the ball handling load, or at least in the past at Wisconsin, he has. So I think Syracuse, if they can stop Hepburn, who leads the team in scoring, 15 points a game, also almost has 100 assists in 17 games. That just tells you how much he has the ball. If Syracuse can stop Hepburn, you cut the head off the snake. But there are other players that really get theirs. You got Rain Smith, probably one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter in the ACC. And you got Terrence Edwards Jr., who last year played at James Madison, Sun Belt Player of the Year, and he is a lefty that likes to get in the mid-range, likes to kind of do his own thing. He could be a matchup problem because if Lucas Taylor's out guarding Hepburn, then you have to have a Chris Bell, or you have to have if Freeman comes back, I'd like that matchup a lot, but I don't know if you're going to get it because Louisville still has some size down low.
And just to add to that hodgepodge narrative, Smith, Charleston transfer,
Yep.
who shot the lights out there during the course of his career, and those percentages and those numbers have translated over quite nicely, as you alluded to, Ian, coming over with Pat Kelsey now to the ACC. I think this is a game where a lot of points are going to be scored.
Yeah.
I think Syracuse has kind of been knocking on the door of that offensive outburst. I think we saw glimpses of it against Boston College. I think this is hopefully the game where you put it all together, because let's be honest, if Syracuse is going to win this game or even hang in this game, I think they're going to have to score some points. I don't know if mid-70s cuts it against this Cardinals squad that does have so many options and can seemingly shoot the lights out. So I think the Donnie Freeman question is a huge one, right? And if you don't get him back for this, is it more than J.J. Starling offensively? Can you get, 15 out of Eddie Lampkin down low and, get Elijah Moore to become more of a factor offensively? He's gone through a little bit of a dry spell. Where else is that offense coming from? Because if it's just JJ and Donnie Freeman is still out, I don't know if the Orange are going to have enough to go punch for punch on the offensive end with this Cardinal squad.
Yeah, Louisville went punch for punch with Kentucky. They've been shut down by really good defensive teams, but I think we can all agree that Syracuse would not be classified as a really good or elite defensive team. Last thing I'll say about Louisville, they are the sixth oldest team in the country, over 3 years of Division I experience. They have 0.1% minutes continuity per KenPom from a year ago. So pretty much none of their guys have ever played together before this year. And they shoot over 50% of their shots from behind the arc. So you talk about scoring, maybe transition is the way that Syracuse stays in this game. Because sure, threes will be made, but threes will be missed. You know what that leads to? Long rebounds, runouts, transition offense, and maybe JJ sprints up and down the floor and has 12 looks at layups before this game is over. That's best case scenario for Syracuse. You can get Chris Bell open down the lane, find him in the corner. He heats up, and who knows? Maybe there's an avenue for this sort of thing. But it would be great to have Freeman back, because I don't know if this is a game where Eddie Lampkin, with Louisville's spacing ability, yep, they can shoot it 1 through 5. I don't know if he sees much time on the floor.
The Dome has been a house of horrors for the Cardinals as of late. Louisville hasn't won in Syracuse since February of 2017, when we were sophomores in high school, just to put that into perspective. You'll get a familiar face on the call. Eric Devendorf will be on the ACC network broadcast later tonight, 7 p.m. tip between the Orange and the Cardinals. Again, a 6-game winning streak on the line for Louisville, and I'm sure Syracuse would love nothing more than to bring that to an abrupt halt. We'll find out tonight if they can do so before taking on the Irish this weekend. Busy weekend for Notre Dame. You get a date against the Orange in the Dome on the hardwood, and then obviously the College Football National Championship. But if you remember, Notre Dame already took down Syracuse once earlier in the year, so that's a game Syracuse will want to serve up a bit of revenge. More on that, though, after the Louisville contest at the end of the week. Enjoy the game tonight. Should be a good one. Syracuse and Louisville back to break it all down with you at the end of the week. Until then, drop us a like, drop us a follow, a subscribe, what have you. We appreciate you sticking with